6. So we're missing Tom, Michelle, thank you. Okay, you have, and this copies right there,
Yeah.
minutes of the meeting from the 12th.
Yeah.
If you look them over, if you haven't already, and I'll need a motion to accept them or amend.
I've already read them,
Yeah.
and I thought you did a good job, and I make a motion that we accept them. I second it.
Okay.
Last meeting.
A motion made by Everett, second by Mike, to accept the minutes from April 12th as presented. Any discussion? None? Those in favor of the motion? Old business, discuss changing Milliken zoning ordinance to increase long-term residential and rental accommodations in the community. The other thing is this accommodating ADUs in the community. And I'll just briefly touch on that ADU stuff. The two bills that were pending in the legislature, at least I think it was two, only two, was 1312 and 2003. And whether they passed or what happened to them, modified, I don't know. I've been on the system and I've looked at it, but I can't be sure how it reads. There's different versions and I'm ignorant of what I'm reading. I know what I'm reading, but I don't know if I'm reading something that's just informative or if it's actual document that's being discussed by the legislature. The passage.
Right.
So that's where that stands. So as far as the other thing. Read there. This is out of zoning ordinance, it's section 12, 12550. There's an extra copy there. If you
125.50. I got it.
oh, you got, yeah, 12550. It just gives a kind of a table form of the different zones and specs on those zones. What is being considered, first of all, the different zones and to see if we should be proposing to go to public hearing for a change in the size of the zones, the setback requirements, the height of buildings, things of that nature. The other thing that's going to be discussed is the different zones around the town and what would be allowed in those zones. And that would be discussed as we get through this minimum lot frontage, road frontage, lot size, setback requirements, side yard, rear yard, things of that nature. So let me open it up. We'll start with R1 with the size of the lot. Just to let people know, when I looked over this, I didn't see things that said, oh yeah, we should think about that. But you guys might think about saying, well, we ought to make the lot bigger, smaller, or whatever. But I didn't find that as being something that was needed, but that's not my decision, that'll be our decision. So on the R1 zone, the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. Essentially, it's an eighth of an acre. I'll just go through the list. The minimum frontage is 50 feet. Obviously, it's not a very wide lot, but the lots that are in the older part of town, 50 feet is somewhat the norm. Minimum front yard setback is 10 feet. The minimum side yard setback is 5 feet for both the principal and the accessory structure. The minimum rear yard setback is 10 feet, accessory structures are 5 feet. The maximum lot coverage is 60%, which is a fairly high percentage, but that takes into consideration that's a pretty small lot as far as other lots are outlined in this document. And the maximum building height is 40 feet. Accessory building is 20 feet. As far as the changes on that, I don't have anything that I was going to propose, but again, anybody here that wants to discuss specifics on the R1?
Wasn't there a question last fall from the town council? And I don't know if it was Steve or who it was that was looking at putting in a ramp or a store on Knobscot Avenue up here. And the ramp, is it considered part of the house and would it go to the street?
There was a lot up here at the end of, just outside of the downtown zone. And that ramp was going to be an issue. There was other issues too on that, but that was one issue that was a concern.
If it's attached to the building, is it considered part of the structure? Would have to go that 10-foot mark?
Okay, good point. Let me just mention that. I've got it here because I looked it up. On definitions. Let's see.
It would be.
And I would think it would have to be attached, right?
Mm.
I have it right here. See, okay, lot coverage on the definitions in this zoning ordinance. It says the percentage of the lot covered by the footprint of the buildings and structures. That's lot coverage.
60%.
And here it's 60%, but that's coverage. And then on structure, that's another definition that affects this. Let me just. Structure, anything built for the support, shelter, or enclosure of persons, animals, goods, or property of any kind, together with anything constructed or erected with a fixed location on or in the ground, exclusive of fences. That's part of the structure.
Mhm.
The term includes structures temporarily or permanently located, such as decks, raised walkways, handicapped access ramps, and satellite dishes. That's interesting. So this was done in the 80s. Apparently there were satellite dishes.
So handicap ramps. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Satellite
the
dishes back then, like 15 feet in
what's that?
diameter. Like satellite dishes back then were 15 feet in diameter.
Yeah, I remember seeing something that was normal. Yeah, quite a while ago. So as far as the lot coverage, it's the percentage of the lot covered by the footprints of the building and structures. And structures is what I just went through.
So you wouldn't, I mean, a ramp has got to be probably what, at least 5 feet, if not sometimes 10 feet according to the grade, right? So,
Yeah, and you've got to have a certain pitch.
right.
Per
Yeah,
foot.
can't exceed it, I would
That's right.
imagine. Yeah,
That's right.
it's
So you
gotta
wouldn't
be-
want to set that in 10 feet if you can't have a handicap accessibility to have individuals with using wheelchairs or whatever to be able to get into buildings.
Well, yeah, it depends where the access point is. If it's the front of the building, then obviously the front butting up against the walkway or whatever, the sidewalk, or if there's an access to the rear of the building, it doesn't have to be at the front. But it structures comes on the ground.
Mhm. So I think that we consider that 10 feet is a lot, especially if we're trying to put in. It's not a full like building, it's a, you know, stairway or whatever. Is there a way to separate that?
I'm thinking not, only because a structure is a structure, it's a structure. It seems like that would be kind of, I wouldn't say finagling, but trying to make things workable that aren't workable.
Evan, do you know the width of a ADU platform or ramp? Certainly,
I can't remember for sure. I want to say the minimum is like 36 inches, and then you need like a turnabout of like 60.
that's right, turnabout of 60, and then there's a
But
slope.
it almost, to me, that almost would be like a special circumstance, because like you said, it depends on where your entrance, what you're using for an entrance of your home. It might be the side, it might be the front, it might be the back. I mean, that's kind of a difficult one to really pin down, because it really depends on the circumstance. The home, house built, what you need for a grade, what you need for a ramp. I mean, that's some pretty
If it's a
extensive
7%
ramps.
grade, you may have to come down to 2 platforms, and you send another platform out, which will set you out in another.
I mean,
60
I've
inches.
seen, I've seen some with
So,
multiple.
yeah.
It depends on the situation. So I agree with him. It's really hard to say, yes, you can, or no, you can't.
It's all gonna depend on that ramp.
Huh?
It's all gonna depend on the ramp, the size of the ramp, and what you've got for area.
What you gotta cover to get your proper grade. Yes.
Yeah. And if you're gonna go too wide, that's 120 inches.
That would be considered an accessory structure. would it not?
What would be, well, the accessory structure,
I don't think so,
I don't
because
think
it's
so.
attached to the
It says it right in
principal
there.
building, I believe, but I'm not sure.
yeah. I didn't look at that one, that accessory structure.
But it said in the structure, handicap ramps, right?
Oh, yeah, it said that in the term, but I was just gonna see when I was going through
Front
this.
setback doesn't seem to matter whether it's accessory or principal.
Okay,
Looking at that, right?
I'm sorry, Evan.
It says minimum front yard setback. It says 10 feet. That doesn't specify in front yard whether it's, it wouldn't matter if it's principal or accessory. It's the front yard setback of 10 feet.
Well, I would look at, when people build a house, they build a house. And the time for an access ramp is after the house is constructed. And I can think of a property that I see on Mass Avenue, and an accessory ramp was put there. And I gotta admit, I don't know where it is in the sense of the limitations in this document.
But this is also business area, downtown residential development. So if one of those houses turns into a store and it needs the handicap accessibility, was I think what Steve was talking about last fall with that particular, and we were talking about parking and stuff like that back then, but I'm just talking about if you need a ramp and somebody wants to put a business in there, I wouldn't think that you could do anything about the front walkway.
I can't really say one way or the other. I know when we discussed that property about a year or so ago, some of the issues that came up, parking and so forth.
Right.
and-
Yeah, there are several.
There were several issues, yeah, but if we're just looking at a business going in there and that maybe they need a ramp, say it's a chiropractic, whatever, are we going to deter the ability to do that, or is there a special circumstance that we could say or could be approved or overruled by the town council?
Well, the town council can overrule us, yeah. I mean, we just propose things and then they go before the town council after it goes through some public hearing, right, from us, but they would have public hearings too. But no, they're the ones that pass judgment.
Right. Right.
But we could do a zone change at the time that came up. We could propose
There's options there, yeah. What where you're coming from, Heidi, is the percentage of the lot coverage. 60% is a pretty good size coverage of the lot. Obviously, it's 5,000 square feet on that on the lot size, because they're 100 deep, 50 wide.
Right. But if you've got 10 feet in the front, say it takes 8 feet for the ramp, then is that going to be a stumbling block for a potential business owner
It might be, but that would have to be worked out specific to
for that situation?
whatever that situation is.
Okay.
Like we were discussing, the ramp doesn't necessarily have to go between the walkway, the sidewalk, and the street, and the building. It could be accommodated in some other ways
into the building.
into the building. Yeah, Sean.
Before we go too much further on this, I just want to point out to everybody that from what I see, the maximum height for a building in town is 40 feet. When we discussed this last week, a couple weeks ago, Tom mentioned that he thought they would never have a building more than 3 stories. And he thought that one of the reasons was that they'd have to sprinkle system in any building over 3 stories. And anyway, my point was at the time was that, when I visit Massachusetts, when I visit Las Vegas, the structures that they're building are 3 and 4 stories high, 5 stories high. That's what residential housing is in today's market. So I'm not going to be surprised when 5 or 6 story buildings are at least proposed. And, do we want to close the possibility because it's never been done that way before? For instance, I know a couple of 5-story buildings, 10-story buildings that are going up, not in town, but they're going up in our area. It is going to happen sooner or later.
That's
So I just
residential,
thought I'd
Charlie?
bring that up because I noticed that on here. At the tallest building in town, residential and commercial is 40 feet. Most of them are 30 feet.
Yeah, and we at planning board didn't get involved in the Great Northern property per se. Obviously, that chimney that used to be out there was what, 350, things of that nature. So there were structures in this town that were well in excess of 40 feet. And I'm sure the steam plant might have been more than that. I'm not,
Absolutely it was.
yeah. I wasn't-
SMI was.
What would Stearns High School be?
I'm sorry?
What would the old Stearns High School, how tall would that be? 30 feet probably, huh?
I bet it's more.
It's at least, what, 2 stories or is it 3?
It's 3.
It's
Three.
3.
It's 10-foot, a minimum 10-foot ceilings.
Half the
And the
basement
baton.
above ground.
I mean, the old Rooster School.
I just thought I'd bring that up for food for thought, something we could be looking at.
Well, the
No,
thing
I
is,
don't mind building. I had stayed on, of course, I'm in new development, but I stayed under the 30-foot mark. Mine.
well, we'll get to that part of the review in the different sections. This 40-foot is the most liberal, and that's in the R1 zone. And I know I've got my comments here, and we'll get into that discussion. But are we satisfied with R1? Are we gonna?
I'm with Charlie. I think it should be more, especially on the housing situation right now. Everywhere you go, it's a problem for housing, residential housing. And working with the organizations that I'm working with, the more attractive it's going to be and more cost effective it's going to be is obviously 1 versus 2 or 3 buildings. And the need is huge. Huge. So if somebody wants to build a 5-story building, I think it could be built easily.
That would be like a multifamily.
Mhm.
multi-unit.
Yep. Yep. I
So
think so.
almost, I mean, kind of be like a small apartment building, basically. That,
Yep.
I'll make sure I'm thinking what you're thinking.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Absolutely.
You know, and while we spoke about that last time, you know, about looking for properties, that there's still property on Wausau Street that could be developed into housing as well.
Mhm.
I mean, there's 3 good sized lots that I saw that could be easily, you know, have some units built on it, but I don't know if you know, how far the town's willing to go with this, but I mean, get a federal grant, or see if you can get a federal grant to build 1 or 2 of them. And,
You think the town's gonna enter into that?
well, I don't know. I'm just saying that they're really tasking us to come up with ideas for housing and stuff. And, you know, maybe adding on to some of these buildings, but you know, if you don't have the right footprint on a building to begin with, and you want to put 2 more stories on it, it might not be the answer.
And
The wall's
I'm,
gonna support it.
Exactly.
There's, you know, there's economies for going up. Being able to build it. What, is there anything sacred about 40 feet?
no, it got put in the 80s,
Right,
probably because that's what
and that would be reasonable.
was a height that was
Right.
customary at that time.
Right.
And we haven't really, I say exceeded it. It might have been, I don't go around this town and maybe Evan or someone, I don't think anyone goes around this town with a tape measure, you know, to see if something is exactly 40 or less.
It might be really attractive to people that were looking at, especially having, if we were a townhouse, people that had the money that wanted the picture of the mountain to be able to have a picture window and be looking at the mountain. If you get up high above the tree line, you can see that mountain all day long. You know, and that would be a huge attraction for people for condos or things like that.
One thing with height requirements too, though, is like you're saying, you're going high enough so you can see, but what are you blocking? That's the other side of that coin too.
Yeah,
Because that building's blocked. If you have a big building that's 5 stories, okay, what are you shading? What are you blocking? What's your visibility for everybody else at that point too? So that's kind of the other side of that.
And some of, just to be thinking about it, some of what we're discussing is not necessarily pigeonholed in an R1 zone. There's different zones, and we'll get into that discussion, but one that allows residential use is the RD zone, which is a fairly undeveloped zone. And there's RD zones in the community that have possibilities.
Right.
And that's where some of this might happen, but not necessarily, let's say, in the downtown area, all of a sudden it's gonna be a 5-story building show up. Things like that.
Probably more so because of your lot size, right? Your minimum lot size, you're gonna go
Lot
taller,
size
you need
and
to go bigger.
parking.
You need to have a bigger footprint, if you're gonna go taller, correct?
But also in the RD zone, there's just options because of what you just mentioned. Someone has a 1-story house and someone builds a 10-story building in front of them, things of that nature. That's why the planning board is,
Does it fit there, does it?
well, it just makes things as workable as
With a small footprint going higher creates parking problems. Parking.
Parking.
Parking problems, yeah.
True.
Yeah, but then if you're talking about that, the solution there would be to have a garage, parking garage, which might be more than 40 feet.
You'd have to have that
You'd
on the
almost
ground
need a
floor.
lot next to it.
Right.
in
I
order
mean-
to have parking a lot with a building, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You almost need 2 lots.
Yeah.
To try to accommodate it in that R1.
And this is not necessarily something that we're gonna do. This is just to make sure that the criteria are reasonable. And someone's gonna come before the CEO or the planning board, mostly the CEO, and say, I want to do this, and go through the specs and say, well, that's gonna be a problem.
Right.
No, we can work around that, do something. So it's not something we're gonna do, it's just to
No.
make sure that the
You know-
criteria here are workable.
No, but I think we might anticipate that the height on our 90 zones only 30.
Yeah,
I think that is a problem.
and that was
If you're
something as
encouraging
we,
development.
because when we get down there, I was looking at that as being something that we might think about. That's all.
The town is changing, economies in the state of Maine is changing. Well, what I think this whole conversation started out with was allowing for residential growth within the town limits.
Yeah, how can we
Now-
encourage that?
The reason I brought this up in the first place is I can think of, on Central Street, I can think of 3 different lots that I believe could be developed in the next 10 years. Now, if we don't allow height, for instance, the person that's looking to put a building someplace looks someplace else. They don't even look at these lots that people have paid good money for. You know, when I say this, I'm gonna start with the Bishop's lot. And I love the community that Carl Mott's building up there. God knows what the next, you know, Carl's getting older. God knows who the next person that's in on those I think it's 3 or 4 housing lots now that he's put together. And, you know, and we want to add value to those lots for the next buyer even. Or for the one that may be retiring, looking for a nest egg. And then we start up Central Street Hill, there's another area that we had the discussion about years ago. Maybe we need to have that discussion again, because, you know, there may be somebody that's willing to invest in mill and Orchard and invest in residential housing, if we allow it. If we go back to, no, this is the way it is, and we're not going to change, people will look elsewhere. And there are plenty of elsewheres in the state of Maine. And I'm going to put this, you know, what I'm talking about on the line. There are lots of ghost towns in the state of Maine too. There are lots of ghost towns. If we don't change, that's what happens to old towns. Thank you.
Did the town purchase the Elks property? No, I know it was up for discussion at one
Oh,
time.
yeah,
I
they
don't know
discussed
yet.
it. I don't know if they finalized it.
I know Tom mentioned about the fire station, a possibility
Right.
on that property.
Yep.
I don't know. Let me ask, and we'll go back to different things,
Mhm.
but is there something that we can propose on R1, or else we'll move on to R2?
What is 5 stories? What is the height of 5 stories?
I would imagine a story is,
60,
yeah,
Probably around
64, 68 feet.
So if we put it up to 70 feet. That's 5 stories.
10 more feet.
what do you meaning, idea?
So if we made the height from 40 to 70 feet, so we could have a potential 5-story building.
That would go up, yeah, 30.
I guess you can. It seems like a 50-foot rock. Yeah. That seems
Parking
like
would
a-
be a big issue.
And remember, folks, we're not solving things for ad infinitum. There'll be other people sitting at this table years from now, and there'll be other issues. So even though we might say, okay, we'll only go 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, it doesn't mean that someone down the road can go different. It's not something that we're gonna solve
Mm,
or deal with,
no,
and this is gonna be cast in concrete for 1,000 years. It's just something that, where we find ourselves now, and we're looking for residential properties options, and what might be a possibility for enhancing the option going forward.
Value added is what I'm talking about.
And I'm not against the value added,
no,
but I wouldn't phrase it quite that way. This isn't a bank account. I mean, someone wants to make a lot that's gonna have, enhanced value economically. Well, it's not enhancing the value for the town. That's where I would say, hey, we're here to see something that the community needs and can respond to. And if someone said, well, geez, I got a lot here and I could really make some money if you did this, well, I don't think that's the town's obligation, and I don't think that's the the planning board should say. We're not here to enhance someone's financial net worth. We're here to see if there's something that the town can benefit. So I'm not arguing with you,
No,
Charlie.
I-
I'm just
I-
saying, I don't
I'm just saying
focus on
food for
that.
thought.
Yeah, focus on it from that viewpoint. But I think what we're discussing here has potential when we get into other things like that RD zone. Because that zone has potential, even though others, town, state might say, geez, you're, spreading things out, it's spread or whatever you want to call it. But if we need more residential possibilities, yeah, there's existing residential. You might put 2 stories on it. Like Tom was saying on other things, you start going so high, you're gonna have to have a sprinkler system, things like that. But there's options that are with other zones that there's no development, a little development in comparison to downtown, or even the R1. The R1, pretty well we find in this area. Let's go, off 8th Street, things like that.
the other thing we need to keep in mind too is that now that you're building everything, the stuff that is being passed in the legislature is now including energy requirements. And I don't know how that would play into an addition onto an existing home without doing some serious modifications to the existing home before you, or while you add 2 stories to it. Because
that would
now
be-
that's becoming, that's gonna become a law.
But if it
So-
becomes a law, our options are limited. We have to, the state is the one that will rule, and the towns will have to comply. Things of that are gonna happen, probably have happened, but it's not as if we're gonna, say, no, we're not gonna follow that rule. We're gonna follow our own rule. Or this, getting the lawyers' business.
We say this, the purpose of the downtown residential zone is to provide high-density residential opportunities.
Mhm.
And I think if you're gonna have high-density residential opportunities, you're gonna have to go up on a small lot.
Well, I mean, by today's standards, downtown area is fairly dense in comparison to other parts of the town, like the R2 zone
Oh, yeah,
or the RD zone.
sure,
Yeah, I
by
mean,
design.
the lots that are on, Route 11 down in Brownville, I think those are like 5-acre lots, things like that. They're pretty good size.
Yeah, what we're saying is that this is all pretty much got houses on it, and there isn't a lot of wiggle room for each of the properties is fairly small with the house on it, so you'd have to go up. And if we're providing residential services, because people are wanting to get around between walking distance or make it accessible to where they are, then going up is,
That's, that's great, but, we also have to, you gotta start with a good base. If there's not a good base there, you know what I mean? If the foundation isn't thick enough to distribute the weight, or if it, some of them now, they don't even have footers.
You still have buildings. Though. You can't
Right.
just- You can't just go
Yeah,
up
you
as high
do.
as you want to go.
Right.
on existing
No.
structure.
You don't almost rebuild the structure anyway,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the walls aren't gonna make it, the foundation ain't gonna take, you almost compare the building down, have to start over.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do five.
I think I might be missing something.
And then you still back to the problem, is if you have more people in there, there's parking to allow. Yeah. Parking.
Is there a shortage of housing or is there a shortage of a place to put a house?
No, the way I'm understanding it, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm understanding it is that
Affordable.
there's a shortage of residential properties, but it seemed to manifest itself in the last, let's say, few years with these short-term rentals. So different structures just off the market. They're not there for options for long-term rent or long-term use. They're essentially residential. The other thing is that people have come from away and have purchased houses for seasonal use.
under Airbnb.
Yeah, and the Airbnb, yeah. But I mean, people have taken houses off the market.
Right, but
It's affordable housing, John.
why are we trying to stick more into a small space? I mean, we have room.
Oh, we're not. We're just dealing with the R1 zone, and I want to go through the other zones, but there's options, like I said, that RD has potential. If someone wanted to, do something, want to put in a trailer park or lots for individual trailers, but the lots are owned by the owner of the trailer, that type of stuff. So it's not a trailer park, things like that. We're just creating options. Yeah,
Speaking of options, I find it really ridiculous. I'm going to give you an example. In Portland, they are putting high rises up without parking because people want to live downtown and they don't want to have to start an automobile to go shopping. They don't want, so they want to be in the congested area because a lot of the younger people don't even own cars today.
No, they got a community system down. They have that buses you everywhere you want to go.
Well,
And that
no.
could happen here.
A lot of it is biking down there. A lot of people are working from home now. You don't even have to leave your home. So the world is evolving, everything from COVID has put us on a computer sitting isolated somewhere as much as possible. So you're in your own house. So walking distance and bikes, that's very doable. And that's what they're doing.
well, that's a possibility. And Portland will have its own issues dealing with snow, and that down in Florida. But having people on bikes in this town, I don't know that I want to ride my bike to 20 below. Things of that
It's
nature.
like,
Sled.
But let's
Right.
keep on specifics, because I do want to get through this series of zoning areas, R1, R2, RD,
Yep.
things of that nature. So as far as R1, seem to be focusing on the height of buildings. It's at 40 feet now, and is there a strong desire to go higher? We can go back. So I don't want to say we got to make a decision now. We're not going to go back, because we'll just put this together as we go forward. But you want to go higher?
What is it now for height?
40.
No, so that would be how many stories?
Two
Can you give us
stories.
40? 2.5?
2-story, yeah, 2.5. It's not,
It wouldn't be
if
above
you
3.
count a story as 10 foot. Not that you have 10-foot walls, it's just the time it's, you got your
Right.
framing for your floor, which is usually a foot or
Yeah,
better.
floor of one,
And
that's
then-
the ceiling of
And
the
then,
other.
exactly,
Same
and
with
then
that.
so on, so yeah,
So,
It's a rule of thumb.
yeah.
yes,
Just for the sake of discussion, I would like to add 10 feet, mainly because to add solar to a home, you might have to add another 10 feet to it.
I don't know about that.
So just to open, this is gonna go to public discussion anyway, and I believe discussion should be allowed. So let's propose a 10-foot increase.
You wanna, I'd like to get something down on paper. So if we made mention about the maximum building height going from 40 to 50.
I
Again,
like
this
that.
isn't cast
Yeah,
in concrete.
Yeah, it's not too much and it's not,
Right.
it's an increase. So,
Okay. Was there any other thing that we discussed briefly on that
Not
R1?
that one.
Now I'm gonna go to R2. Let me run through the list here. The minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet, which is roughly a quarter of an acre. Road frontage is 100 minimum. The front yard setback is 25 feet. The minimum side yard setback is 5 or 10. And the way that works is the 10 foot is the real limit, but if someone had a structure that was, read the fine print at the bottom, it's before 1994, and they wanted to put in a garage, they could have 5 foot side yard setback on one side, but it has to be 10 on the other. But since we'll be on 1994, it's 10 feet.
Are we talking about the in-law apartments or stuff like that now too?
No, these are just dimensions of the lot and how something is gonna be, situated, the footprint of the building, things of that nature. Apartments and so forth, that's gonna be a use of, someone might have a house and they have a apartment arrangement for their relative or something. But we're not gonna have it discussed here.
So with the 25-foot yard setback, if somebody wanted to put a tiny house or a small trailer or something like that onto the property for in-laws or whatever, that's where I was thinking, 25 feet back.
I mean, putting it in the front of the house. That's what people want to do, obviously. I don't know that we're gonna get into these specifics. But what we need to concentrate on is the structures that are in these locations now. And if someone has, I can think of one right now, if someone's got one of these Quonset huts on their front lawn. I don't know what the setback is. But I doubt it is an apartment, it's just one of these cloth top Quonset huts that they put out there. Been there for a while. But, yeah. But what I'd like to focus on is really what's on the paper as far as should we increase the allowed not usages as much as the size of the thing. And what I had in my own notes is that maximum building height increase. These are notes that I wrote to myself, so I'm not proposing it. I'm just recalling it. Memory is not memory, but what I wrote down is increase 10 feet for the R2, RD, and NC zones. So if you looked at the different zones, You know, the R2 is a 30-foot limitation on building height. The RD is a 30-foot limitation on building height, and the neighborhood commercial has a 30-foot limitation on building height. What I wrote here for my own comments is increase the building height 10 feet in those three zones, RD, R2, and then C, neighborhood commercial. And that brings that, the rationale there was to bring it up to what the R1.
Right.
Across the board.
Yeah. Give me some feedback, folks, on, if we could go laterally instead of taking these things as vertical columns. What about the building height in those R2, RD, and neighborhood commercial zones being increased from 30 feet to 40 feet? Or we already talked about on the R1 going from 40 to 50.
I'd like to see them all make increase 10 feet for the same reason that we talked about with the solar.
10 feet or great 20 feet.
Make all
They're
50.
30 now.
And, you know, increase each one of them as, you know, as we approach each
Make it, like, make it all the way.
ID.
Yes,
Add 10 feet to each one of them. That's what I'm
so you take them up to 5.
And the R2 would be taking it up to 40,
Mhm.
and the RD would be taking it up to 40.
And then we can see.
And then the R1 would be taken up to 50. That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
You know, where, you know, if you go right across the line, you're seeing 40 and 30. I'm saying increase them all 10 feet.
The neighborhood commercial is on the back of that paper if you're looking for it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's 30 feet.
Yeah.
Essentially, the neighborhood commercial is the old R1 lot sizes and things of that nature, but they have been commercialized. So increase that to 10 feet. Are we comfortable with that?
Yeah.
I'm gonna just pencil that in.
I wonder if the rural development increase. That's the one we should be encouraging development.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Well, that's the one, like I said, it's the zone that's least developed in the
Right.
community now.
Right.
So if you were gonna have taller buildings without them necessarily impinging upon existing structures, that would be the most flexible.
That is my thing.
10 on the ones that we discussed, and RD will go with 50.
50.
I'd like that.
As far as, are we done with the R2 vertically, you know, the R2, because we started to go with the building height across the board. But if the other criteria are workable, I'd like to move into the RD zone.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
so just to be clear real quick, R2 you want to increase to 50?
No, 40, and RD, as Avram was saying, go to 50.
From 30 to 50.
Yeah. All right, moving on, the RD zone is Minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet with roughly a half acre. You have 150-foot road frontage or shore. You don't have shores, but road frontage. You have minimum front yard setback is 50 feet. You have minimum side yard setback is 20 feet. You have minimum rear yard setback of 20 feet. Essentially all around is 20s. And maximum lot coverage is 20%. So 20% of 40,000 square feet is substantial. You've got 8,000 square feet. Yeah,
That's right.
it's a pretty good sized footprint. So I mean, it seems like a smaller number, which it is, but obviously the lot is quite a bit, larger in size. And the principal structure we talked about for a height of 50 feet.
Um, um,
Is the setback 50? Can we do that 25 or no?
Yeah, we can put that down.
I think that's a lot of,
50 isn't really too much. You go from the center line of the road to the edge of your property, or what you're thinking is to the edge of a building. By the time you start with your snow removal and stuff, or your snow plowing, I know where I am right now, where I just bought that lot. If I measured out that 50 feet, that was all nothing but snowbank for me. I mean, it was high.
As far as leaving room for snow removal. what you're thinking.
Well, that, and if it was a building right there, I mean, the snow would be right up against the building on 50 feet. It's that close.
So what you're saying, your logic is no less than 50, or,
I wouldn't go less than 50.
okay. Right now, it's 50 for the RD zone. And as things unfold, years going forward, like I said, there'll be different people at this table,
Yeah,
and it might,
Good change.
it will change. There's no doubt about it. It will change. We're talking about it now. No one was talking about it in '88 or when this document was first being drafted.
Let me back up a minute.
Yes.
20. Maximum lot coverage, 20%. You said is 8,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Now, is that enough? When we said the top following types of residential accommodations in the ID zone: two-family dwelling duplexes, multi-family dwellings, with 3 or more families,
Mhm.
including apartments, group houses, and mobile home parks. Is 8,000 square feet enough for the duplex units, multi-family dwelling, 3 or more families?
Well, you're talking about something that I haven't brought up yet, but it was in my list of here, maximum lot coverage. I'm just putting it down, my own, I was to say remembrance, but I was saying the R2 and RD zones maybe can be increased by 5% to give, more allowable development of the property. The R2 zone is now maximum lot coverage is 25%, that will go to 30%. And the rural development zone was 20%, and then it go to 25%.
Well, I certainly believe it, the ID zone, well, we really need to encourage all kinds of that growth. We shouldn't limit. I think it's the rule limit. So that's certainly for 25. That's enough.
If we're talking 100 feet along the roadway, setting it back 50 feet,
Well, 150 on the RD zone. That's what it's-
150.
Yeah.
Frontage on the road,
Mhm.
setting it back 50 feet, you're eliminating them. Who does that? How much?
I don't know.
You're eliminating a good sized portion of that lot.
Well, essentially, you've
Yeah,
got,
but it might not be usable.
That's for the guy that owns it, to figure out, right?
yeah, and I mean, we're talking about possibilities for individuals. And this is not necessarily gonna be a multifamily development. It's an option to put one there, 3 or more families or a duplex unit, things
Right.
like that. It's just
Is that,
more,
is that assuming that somebody buys one lot? The
uh,
dues on, and somebody could buy 2 lots, and now
I'm-
is he gonna have the clearance between the two? To put one building on 2
Who knows
lots,
what
or
the
has he got to
future's
combine the lots?
gonna bring. I'm thinking, when you have undeveloped area, someone might come to town and say, I'm gonna buy
5, 10 lots.
20 acres, and I wanna do this, whatever this is.
See, when we started this conversation, the minimum lot size is 40,000. Am I
Right.
reading this right?
Yeah, 40,000 half acre.
Half acre. And we want to get away from that, because we want people to develop this property. They want to be able to afford to develop the property first of all. But, they have to have a half acre. It's
It's not much
Lot.
land.
Yeah.
That's not much land.
half an acre is not much. It's more than what is needed.
But I mean, the possibilities are like grouped houses. We've had a thing come before the planning board, think about the Kelly's, but the trailer park that was expanded years ago. And the different structures that were allowed were such that the lots, let's say the lot had to be a half an acre. Well, the intent was, is that, okay, we're not gonna have the half acre. There's gonna be a tighter consolidation of the trailers, but the total area would be equivalent to what would be that half acre. It's just, it's gonna be open area for, let's say, families, children, playground, things of that nature. It just gets into a different situation, these grouped houses and so forth. But that gets into other things, because then there has to be something in the registry of deeds that indicates that this is the way this area is to be developed, was developed. And that someone down the road that says, hey, I want to put a house over there, in that children's playground. No, when this was developed, this was going to be arranged in such a way that the houses would be, or the trailers would be configured a little differently, but that the open space would be available for this, I wouldn't say community, but this development. So if someone doesn't come down the road and say, I want to do this in the future, well, it's not really an option, because the area was developed with this intent in mind. It's just, we don't know what's gonna happen.
Right. No, what I see our objective is to encourage development.
Mhm.
Well, encourage, or at least not stifle.
All I want to encourage,
Yeah.
I don't want to just stay neutral. We need it. We need housing development.
But let me
So
go,
if you need something, you got to encourage.
well, we were talking about increasing the building sizes, and we did. And then we got onto this R2 and RD zone, at least that's the 2 I wrote down, and increasing them by 5%. And you mentioned that, I think on the RD, that maybe 5% was not insufficient, but maybe not as,
Much as it should be.
Right.
yeah. So let's deal with the maximum lot coverage on the R2 and RD zones. If we increase, this is just throwing out for discussion. If we increase it from 25 to 30%, and then the RD zone, my notes said 5%. What if we said, no, increase that also to 30%?
Sounds good to me.
Increase them by 5%.
10% on the RD.
I do
10% is gonna be on the RD and 5% on the
they're
R2.
both 30.
R2. So 30%, 30%.
I wanna move on, if we can. On the downtown commercial zone, that's another zone that allows residential use. Obviously, it's not configured as much for that as residential use is kind of ancillary. It just gets, apartments on the top of the store and things of that nature. But my notes here to myself again is that where's that funny? The down. Oh, hold on, let's put it in, see it. The downtown commercial has 5,000 foot, same as the R1, 50-foot minimum on the width. You have minimum yard setback, rear yard is 10 feet, and that's the way it is now, is essentially a minimum rear yard setback. There is no side yard setback you can build, and no front yard setback you can build right up to the property line. Maximum building height is 40 feet.
Can we do 50 on that?
Yeah. If that's the consensus here.
Increase it to 50 on downtown commercial?
I'm gonna pencil that in, folks.
And then if we're gonna do that there, I'm gonna do that in the highway commercial zone. That's right up Central Street.
Yeah, I didn't write anything down here for my notes. But essentially,
It's a minimum 1 acre lot size.
Basically going to the town. So I don't see why we couldn't.
No, it's good.
It's all this way.
essentially, if you looked at the matrix, which I didn't distribute, but if you looked at the matrix, all the residential zones from the R1 down to, let's see, down to the neighborhood commercial, and it also includes the downtown commercial and the highway commercial as far as residential development. The others industrial, airport development, things of that nature. Residential uses essentially is not permitted per se. But the, let me see. All right, that was what I was looking at, trying to find my notes, which I haven't yet. Looking at this matrix, downtown commercial, the limitation that you see in that zone deals with mobile home parks. It's not allowed. And even though I didn't write it down, that I can find it here, I know it was in my notes when I was thinking about this. The downtown commercial zone is fairly structured in development and size. And to actually say, oh yeah, we're gonna put a trailer park in the downtown zone, I don't think it's possible.
We're not saying that though, are we?
Oh, no, well, it's the limitation, what I was doing when I was trying to put together my notes is to look at the different zones and say, what's allowed? In the R1 zone, everything was allowed. In the R2 zone, you had some limitations on multifamily dwellings. You also had limitations on mobile home parks, things of that nature. So the downtown one, to have and we had a discussion some months ago, quite a few months ago, when the town council wanted more focus of commercial use in the downtown area rather than allowing other options. And the planning board, maybe individuals here weren't on it, we changed things that were allowed in the sense of, in the matrix, it showed a Y. So in other words, someone in the downtown could have a single family residential use, and it was just a Y. A Y meant the matter doesn't even come before the planning board or the CEO. Someone has a lot, you want to put in a single family residential use, downtown commercial, you do it. That's it. So we changed that. And we put it for site review. Doesn't restrict it, it just wasn't carte blanche. It was something that could be permitted within certain qualifications. But it took it, how would you say, to more of a review nature by the planning board and even the CEO. So this goes back to this downtown area and this prohibition on mobile home parks. And I think that is a prohibition that should stand as far as the configuration of this downtown commercial area. It's, I don't know what Main Street is, a quarter of a mile, maybe a little more. And it really, goes back one property width, over towards the Rustic and in the direction of more west. But as far as empty space to put in a trailer park, there is no empty space. I'm thinking about what the town council wanted some months ago to have more focus on commercial use. I would see things of, someone has a trailer, they want to put it on a lot in the downtown area. It would come before the planning board and CEO, rather than being permitted, a lot. They got the lot, they have to put a trailer there, that's what it's gonna be.
I was at one of those economic meetings and I just brought it to everybody's attention because they weren't paying attention to it. What I brought to their attention was that the downtown commercial area, if is extended a lot further than downtown. It's a lot further than Penobscot Avenue. It goes up to the library and beyond, and it goes to the Vassars and beyond. And so, you know, it's a larger area than what you were just describing.
Yeah,
It's
but
just that
the,
one street.
the downtown zone per se, the biggest, when this document was first being talked about, and actually it initially passed that way. The downtown area extended all the way up to the Untitled Avenue and so forth. And then it was quickly realized that means if someone comes along, this is back in 1980 something, and this thing was adopted in 92. If someone came along and said, yeah, I want to put a property similar to what's on Penobscot Avenue, but over here next to the Congregational Church. And I want to go front to back, left to right, with just a 10-foot setback or setback in the lot to be developed. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb. And that's where the expansion of the neighborhood commercial zone, you know, was encouraged, if you want to call it that, because to have a downtown in an area that isn't downtown as far as a footprint of a building, it was just going to open up a can of worms. So it allowed commercial development, but not to the same configuration of Penobscot Avenue. People could have commercial development, you had side yard setbacks, you had front yard setbacks, to kind of fit into the landscape more so than having someone propose a structure similar to what you would see on Penobscot Avenue.
Well, just again, I'll point it out, it's a lot bigger than just the downtown, the one Penobscot Ave. It does, I think it does go in some places out to Cotton Avenue. And it goes down, I think, almost down to the river. It's, like I said, you know, it's on here as in the down DC, downtown commercial area.
Doesn't show where it cuts off, but
You know, right now they're talking about expanding bicycle paths and put traffic around that whole area. And I always thought I was there because I wanted them, you know, to allow somebody to walk, you know, because I live on Main Avenue, and I know during the wintertime it's really difficult to walk to the downtown. So I just tried to bring it to their attention that you know, this whole area really, you know, in years to come, you know, there's a church plaza up there. Who knows what churches are going to be in 5 years? Who knows? There's the library plaza. There's a couple of big buildings there, garden forest management, good sized building, the Knights of Columbus
Knights of
building.
Columbus.
You know, all those lots are going to change in the next number of years. You know, and we want to allow the change.
The downtown zone, Charlie, essentially covers Penobscot Avenue and Aroostook, and it cuts right down the middle of Aroostook. But when it gets towards Central Street, I don't know what by the Elks, it goes behind the Elks and then goes towards Central Street.
Bangor Savings.
And then the Bangor Savings Bank, but the one that's Dean Bo Payne's office now, that's in the downtown, and the lot coming in this direction is downtown, and then all the lots that border Central Street on both sides is in the downtown zone.
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
and then going this way though, does it go up to Main Avenue?
Does it go up to Main Avenue? It goes behind the properties on Penobscot Avenue. So the front of the property is actually, it looks, there's a second lot, if you want to call it a second lot, from, that's Poplar Street down here where the little triangular park is, Veterans Park.
Yeah.
And essentially it goes behind all the businesses on Penobscot Avenue, but then one lot even deeper towards, that would be
Island Avenue.
Highland Avenue. Yeah, but Highland Avenue, the properties that border Highland Avenue are in the neighborhood commercial zone.
Okay, yeah, okay, I haven't seen that now. Just, I guess I'm talking about NC.
Yeah,
Neighborhood.
Yeah.
And is that Congress Street as well, when you get down past the Elks? Where they're doing all these walking paths and all that? Congress Street, is that considered neighborhood commercial? Or is that considered downtown commercial? Where they're doing all the
Congress
walking?
Street, essentially, as you get towards Central Street, the buildings that, or the properties that border Central Street are in that downtown commercial zone. But the others are all this R1 zone, over here. And going further towards the mill direction. That's what we got into that discussion with Steve, because that little street right there,
Pine Street,
Poplar,
no Pine.
Pine Street is it? Okay, it might be Pine Street. I'm sorry, I can't read. And it isn't written here.
Pine or Spruce.
Oh, no, that's, not anymore. It's a little
That'd be
short street,
Spruce.
where Boynton,
Yeah.
Oh.
In fact, he was part of that
Yes, he
discussion.
was, yes, he was.
Yeah.
That's where Preble is now.
Hemlock,
isn't it?
not Hemlock.
But essentially, that's where downtown ends.
Hmm.
So the property is on one side of downtown,
The old
the other
Bass's
side is,
warehouse area,
I'm sorry?
the old Bass's warehouse area, is that what you mean?
No,
No,
it's not. in
behind
that
the fire
direction.
department.
It's going further
The name
further
of the
south.
Appalachian Trail place where they keep the rooming house there.
Okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
saying.
Yeah.
I just can't think of the name of that street.
I couldn't think of it.
But this
Yeah,
map,
Street right here.
No, it's down towards the Appalachian Trail. No.
Boarding house.
Boarding house.
Where,
I think that's Spruce, isn't it Spruce?
Spruce is.
No, Spruce is
Oh, it's
over
closer
here.
the other way, yeah.
Yeah.
Spruce and Pine.
Yeah.
I just can't think of the name of that street.
Before Street to go down to Crandall Park.
Yep.
There's a hill.
No, that's what Dean Bolt is.
No,
But the old place is, it's where the
yeah, with the
Library.
library.
Todd and Timberlands is now. Library, yeah.
But essentially, this map that I've got here dates back to when this downtown commercial zone is quite a bit larger. You can see it's.
I think the last time I can remember that was updated was in early
Oh,
'80s. Because I was the building inspector here then.
It had to be, I'd have to go back and see what it's
Yeah.
got.
And when we did the community block
Of
The
grant.
old hand
This-
building right there.
This
Yeah,
document was adopted by the town in '92, but it was being developed in the late '80s.
yeah.
So I would say that this was considered DC,
Yeah,
for a large area in the late '80s. But then in the early '90s, things got cut back. Diana would have something in the records that indicates when that was actually passed by the town council.
I think that building on that corner is 3 stories high.
Which one is that?
The old hand building, that red one.
yeah, that's one of the Appalachian Trail.
Used to be a rooming
Yeah,
house.
The boarding house.
Boarding house, yeah, that's 3 stories.
I used to clean that when I was in eighth grade.
Wow.
Quite a little education.
Yeah, I just want to apologize for misspeaking because I was thinking residential, commercial, neighborhood commercial.
Yeah.
And
You
I
have to give it a
misspoke when I said downtown commercial. But what I was saying is not, I think, I was making a point where that area will be changing. And we really want to start thinking of allowing the changes.
I'm sorry, and what's the
The
change?
area, Main Avenue, Hill Street, going out to Cotton Avenue. The area that's on this map is in residential, commercial.
A lot of that area is R1 as you go further north, Main Avenue and Highland. But that's just the way it's been. I don't know that it's a can of worms that we had to give more thought to. Because once things get expanded, it's not that it has ramifications. It really has.
Okay, we were on HC.
HC,
Now,
Yeah.
did we all,
Thank you.
did we all agree to 50 feet on that, or is it gonna stay at 40?
And that was the
Height
highway
requirements.
commercial.
height, yeah.
Yeah, highway commercial.
We've got DC at 50 and R1 at 50, so I would, and RD at 50, I'd say 50.
Highway commercial.
That's really just on the edge of town.
I know this is 10 minutes later, but it's Birch Street.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just said it 10 seconds.
Did you?
So
He's trying to find it.
So the discussion is on the highway commercial is to increase the maximum building height to 50 feet from
Yeah.
40 feet.
Yeah.
On the RD zone. On the RD zone, I'm reading now from 12533, which gives a kind of a brief synopsis of what the purpose of the zone is. And it says the purpose of the rural development zone is to conserve areas that are presently rural in character and use, provide opportunities for those who desire low-density residential living, and to provide for the orderly development of this area to meet community needs. It seems like this was made to order for what this town is now dealing with as far as options for residential development. And that was what I was saying some time ago, is that the flexibility that an RD zone has is different than an R1 or R2 zone. If the R2 zone or R1, covered a lot of real estate, then you say, well, yeah, you can still do things out here, but there is no out here. The R1 zone is pretty well confined to areas that are already developed. The R2 zone is essentially the new development in the Morgan Lane area. And it doesn't expand geographically or real estate wise until you get into another zone, and that's the RD zone.
Do we have to look at changing the wordage of that description?
In what capacity, in what way, Charlie?
Well, it's kind of, the words, the way I heard it is kind of, you gotta have a big lot to build on. Just try rereading it.
It says the purpose of the rural development zone is to conserve areas that are presently rural in character and use. Provide opportunities for those who desire low-density residential living and to provide for the orderly development of this area to meet community needs.
What is low density residential area? Not a lot of houses.
Well,
Minimum lot size 40,000.
yeah, 43,000 is an acre, a little bit more, but
Yeah,
40,000 is
43,000.
pretty good size.
So it's a half an acre. That's what it was. I think we,
No,
More than that.
no, half an acre is 20,000,
It's
roughly.
almost an acre.
almost an acre.
Yeah, it's almost an acre.
Someone's driving. It's like 43.
43,560
something.
square feet is an acre.
4,560 square feet.
So essentially, the RD zone has a minimum lot size of essentially 1 acre.
Yeah.
Even though it's not exactly, it's 40,000 square feet. The road frontage is 150 feet. The front yard setback was 50 foot, that was discussed on this. We were discussing this, so we really don't know about that. Side yard setback is 20 feet, and the rear yard setback is 20 feet. And then the maximum lot coverage, we went from 20% to 30%.
Yeah.
And we went from the maximum building height from 30 feet to 50 feet.
Good.
And on the back side of that page, downtown commercial is what I was discussing before. The limitation in the matrix is that trailer parks are not allowed in the downtown area, but really the option of putting a trailer park in the downtown area, not possible because there's no space
Right.
for a trailer park. And we discussed, mentioned about the change that was agreed some months ago, quite a few months ago, so that some of the property couldn't be developed for a single family trailer located in the downtown lot. Because the town wanted to focus more on retail, commercial use rather than residential use. So we took that and didn't include it, prohibit it, but we said it has to go through planning board, it has to go through set plan review. It just couldn't be what it was. It was a why, which meant we could do it. The highway commercial, I'm looking at the lot size. It actually says 1 acre, but essentially that's just another 360 feet more than what the RD is. That's 40,000. It's 43,560. And the minimum road frontage is 200, and the minimum front yard is 50, same as the RD. The minimum side yard is 25. It was the RD, it was 20. And the minimum rear yard is 25. And again, the RD was 20. So it's 5 more feet. And that the building height was 40, and we're saying to bring it up to 50. And the lot coverage in the highway commercial zone is quite large. 80%. And that was because of the type of development like the Family Dollar place that is located, and of course, the Hannaford is there for quite a while. So, I mean, the footprint of something that's developed is pretty significant. 80% is quite a bit. You know, essentially, you're taking that 43,560 square feet, you're taking 8,000 square feet out of it, figures. I'm saying the rest of it could be building, could be walkways, could be macadam parking, things of that nature. Again, getting back to the definition of what's a structure. Structure on or in the ground, which takes an essential.
Does the 200 minimum road shore frontage seem excessive to you guys when it's 50 and 75 for downtown commercial and neighborhood commercial?
Well,
I mean, you could go deep,
Depends on what
right?
you're developing.
Right, you could go deep and not have to have that kind of road frontage, right?
Yeah, but when you've got,
You can't go beyond.
but the RD zone, but the RD zone has a minimum road frontage of 150. You're saying to reduce it?
200 is a lot to me.
well, when you're putting in a commercial business or anything, or even doing what I'm doing, I need that.
Well, it's not saying that you can't go bigger, it's just to
It's a
give you
minimum.
something smaller.
You know?
Oh, I see.
I see what you're saying. You're saying a minimum, not a
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah, like a minimum of
Essentially,
200.
it's 150 on the RD zone and it's 200 on the highway commercial. And we can knock that back to the 150. But the RD zone is 40,000 square feet
Mhm.
minimum. And this is just another 360 square feet bigger.
Yep, sounds like we could use that.
150?
Now, I say 350, it's 3,000. So essentially on the back, on this part of the table that I distributed, the DC zone and the highway commercial HC zone, we covered that.
Yep.
Saying, no, we didn't, if there's something that, and we didn't say anything about the neighborhood commercial zone. The neighborhood commercial zone is a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet. Now, there's a lot in the neighborhood commercial zone, they're not 7,500 foot lots. Because essentially that configuration dates back to the early 1900s. And essentially it was a 5,000 square foot lots. Yeah, my-
Grandfathered in?
Huh?
Are they grandfathered in?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So is that doable to drop it down to 5,000?
Well, essentially, this is going forward. Someone in the neighborhood commercial zone wanted to have another lot developed, minimum would be 7,500 square feet. But we can make it less than that. We can go back to the 5,000 square feet.
Why did we increase it?
Why did we increase it? Well, I'm the only one that was on this board that long, but essentially that was done in the late 80s. And the rationale for doing it, I can't recall what was that from.
You've got no opposition.
But essentially, the lots are what the lots are.
Right.
Yeah.
But you just don't, you want to give as much room as you can if somebody decides to buy it, tear it down and start again. So 5,000, if there are others that are already 5,000, it's obviously doable, And make
Consensus
this-
here,
user friendly.
is that something that?
Oh, yeah, DC is 5,000. One is 5,000.
I think I did it wrong.
7,500 square feet.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, again, and I know you can come back and it's a minimum. You could always go bigger, but I don't think you'll attract anybody or any organization that might come in here that's if it's at any less.
Well, essentially, the lots are what the lots are.
Lots are already developed. right?
Yeah, I mean,
They are
More
developed.
lots.
the lots that are in these downtown, excuse me, these neighborhood commercial areas, they're what they are. And some of them are 5,000 square feet. And if the lot is gonna be used for, as a neighborhood commercial, it's not gonna be limited, you know, to, you gotta have 2 lots in order to use it. At least that's the way I'm looking.
So if you were to buy it, are you then not grandfathered in? And then you would have to do something to revamp it.
I mean, to change a lot that would be in the neighborhood commercial zone for commercial use. That actually require a lot and a half, if you will.
Right, by these standards, if somebody new is buying it, they're not really grandfathered in. Is the existing structure going to be overruled, per se, if it's 5,000 square feet?
Not my decision, it's just that it would be something that would have to be, because the lots are already developed. What I'm thinking in the 75 square foot limitation, if there was an undeveloped area, in the sense, a lot that is gonna be in a downtown, a neighborhood commercial zone, and someone says, I wanna put a lot here, and I'm gonna put in this business, then that 75 square foot limitation would be effective. But if they were gonna be locating business in a developed lot that is now used for residential use,
The law is what it is.
a lot of it is. That's the way I would see it.
And what does it harm to bring it down?
Going forward, well, I'm thinking about, if we're gonna be looking at new development in this town, I think that RD zone is the thing that's got the most potential
That's right.
because it's the least developed. The downtown commercial and neighborhood commercial zones, in the R1 zone, are all in place, mostly 5,000 square foot, or maybe bigger, but 5,000 square foot. That's the way it is. The lots are what they are.
I just think that if we overcomplicate each of these regions and we don't have to for any specific reason, then if somebody misses a beat or a step on these configurations, you know, I know everybody's supposed to be checking all the codes and all that stuff, but why, if we're saying 5,000 for the majority of them, why wouldn't we say 5,000 for the neighborhood commercial?
I can't see why. We can drop it down because again, the lots are what the lots are.
Right.
They're not gonna expand. I mean, someone can't get a 5,000 square foot lot to expand to 7,500.
That's what I'm thinking.
Build,
You're gonna have
Take that.
2,500 feet of
yeah,
vacant lot.
Right.
we can knock it down to 5,000. By what I'm,
Just user friendly. And just, again, it's not bring a headache to somebody that's trying to purchase a brand.
But then you're also talking land surveying too.
that's the very end.
Well, if you knock it down to, no, we can't, you're right, the law is what it is.
Lots
It's
are
already done.
made, they're
It's
already
already
mapped
done.
out, they're already
Yeah.
measured.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Essentially, I would see thinking, is someone gonna come before the CEO or the planning board and say, there's an undeveloped area over there, I want to put this neighborhood commercial lot in place at this location, and then it's gotta be 7,500 square feet, rather than a lot that's already in place, has a residential structure on it, and now they're gonna use it for
Or nothing
Commercial
like the
use.
home,
Right.
I'm sorry,
or nothing like the old bowling alley.
that's in downtown.
Right. Because you can only use 60% maximum lot coverage, 60%. Whereas downtown, 90, highway, 80. So you're really kind of squeezing somebody in there to try to do something that may or may not work. So drop down to 5,000.
I'm agreeable in the sense of that's what we're gonna want to do, the planning board, because this will go before the public, then it'll go to the town council, and they'll make their decision. They'll hold their own public hearings too. We got a consensus here in the sense that we're able to smaller lot size required for the neighborhood commercial zone. Since lots that are there are already configured for 5,000 square feet for the most.
Yeah, I guess so.
I see Charlie's shaking his head.
They're really gonna accomplish.
What's it gonna accomplish? Well, essentially, if someone was gonna put a business in the neighborhood commercial zone, the lots are there. I mean, the zone is, like I said, it surrounds this downtown commercial area. Goes up to the old Katahdin Avenue School, goes out Bay Street and so forth. The lots are already there.
So if we change it, that really, it's not really.
No, change on paper because the lots are already in place. I don't know if there's advantage or disadvantage.
I think it's to the property owner, whoever purchases it, if they don't have to do something more versus less, if they decide to do something different with it.
The only thing that I can quickly think of, and I'm not saying this, throw water on anything. The only thing I can think of, we, planning board dealt with that Kelly Lane, Bay Street situation about a year or so ago, when that area got, torn apart. And then the owners finally smoothed out the lot and so forth. And that's the only area that I can think of that is in the neighborhood commercial zone. There's no structure on it. And I doubt that it's actually 7,500 square feet. I'd have to go back to what it is. But that's the only lot I can think of that's essentially not in residential use, or at least have a structure on it. All the other lots I can think of in the neighborhood commercial zone have something on it.
On Highland Avenue, going up from Central Street. You got I think the curate at the church has a home there. Then you got the Knights of Columbus, which is a pretty old building,
Yeah,
and you got a couple of vacant lots. And then you got a tear down house, and I'm not sure if it will get torn down,
Corner
but
spruce, yeah.
yeah. corner spruce. And then you come back up that street, you know. You got Cotton Forest Management. They come and go, huh? And but then we're talking about the old the old Great Northern Guest House, which is a pretty big property when you're talking about 5,000 foot lot, you know, areas.
mhm.
And like I said, I pray that that church will be there for years to come, but churches are going out of style, they really are. So we're talking about a lot of different lots.
And what you're talking about is, that's all neighborhood commercial.
That's what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, that's all neighborhood commercial.
Right. That going out towards Kelly.
Well, I don't think you see anything change as far as the Knights of Columbus is, as far as that property, unless the diocese makes them sell it, but
Which happens.
it happens on occasion, but we
Well,
make pretty good
often
money there.
But
We
those
make
those
good
lots
money
are
there,
already
so.
mapped out, and established, correct?
Mhm.
What's the consensus on this lot size? in the neighborhood commercial zone? Leave it at 7,500. Opposed to drop it down to 5,000.
No, I'm not, no. My opinion
Yes.
is if you, the only way I can see the 5,000 benefiting would be is if there was another development, another section of town that was opened up and developed as a neighborhood commercial. Because where everything else is already previously established, previously mapped out, I don't really think it makes a big difference, but if something was built, made and created, then I can see wanting that minimum if you wanted, but at this point, I don't.
And we don't have any, the town doesn't have any real estate in the bounds of the town that aren't developed, have something on them already,
Right.
and the lots are already established. This example with this lot that was discussed some time ago, Kelly Lane, 8th Street, is the only thing that I can quickly think of that essentially doesn't have something in place. It's
Yeah.
just undeveloped land.
Yeah.
And size of that is-
And you don't have much more than that either in town. I mean, you go down the Rice Farm Road. And, you know, you've got Cassidy Timberlands that won't sell any land at all. And you've got IP that's really not wanting to sell. The only one that is the Elks. And
The-
Preble Oil Company's got some down there that'll sell.
Rice Farm Road, would that be zoned?
The Rice Farm Road is coming away from Central Street. It's commercial forest land, CF. But when you get down to lots that, I think it was Jack Dyer that put in the development that never really materialized. There were some lots along Medway Road that I think were developed, at least one. I think George Martin was living there. But I don't know if anybody is in the part of the development that,
That's not Preble Oil land?
who owns it? That's a good question.
I think it's
don't know
Preble
who
Oil
the
land.
owner
He
is.
bought
Some
that from
land out
Preble
there
Oil.
Owned by Preble.
Preble owns from River Drive, River Drivers? No, not River Drivers, but what's the name of the restaurant that's down there? Free Rivers.
I mean,
Yeah,
the
Brown
old,
Restaurant.
Three
Yeah.
Rivers, they own from where Carl was, all the way down through Three Rivers, where they've got it all developed in campsites. A good part of it, yeah, a good part of it.
well, a lot of that
And then it goes
is
all
is
the way
all
down.
RD, old development. The old Rice Farm Nursery.
Yeah.
And Matt Polstein's place, that restaurant there, that's all RD. The Jack Dyer development essentially is not a development anymore, the way I understand it. And that's all in RD. Road development. And the rest of the area going back towards town from Medway Road, you get to those wet areas, that's all commercial forest land.
For a reason.
Well, that was really the way it
Well,
factored in. And if you go back to the descriptions, which we didn't cover, the commercial forest land, but essentially,
it should have been anyway, because it's really not good for anything else, but
actually, there is no,
No, I like where.
I don't find anything that says a definition of the commercial forest land in that section 125.33. There isn't. No, they got open space recreation, OR, you got import development. Yeah. So essentially, it's just commercial forest land. Coming all the way back to town, because the other side of that development, that other side of that wet area, essentially. The airport development zone. Essentially, you got highway commercial, that's 1,000-foot strip right along 157. But then the end of the runway on the airport out to those wetland areas are all airport development. And it's the other side going further east toward East Millinocket where it goes into commercial forest land.
that's where it was annexed.
Yeah, it was annexed all the way down to Dolby. Notes, essentially, the next thing it says, consider the types of ADUs to be accommodated in a community. And that's really an unknown. I don't know how the regulations that were being discussed by the legislature, if they've been adopted or not adopted, and if they were adopted, what was the wording?
You know, I don't know why, if they were, you know, when they're adopted, why they don't send notifications
Notifications?
to the municipalities that, you know.
Well,
sit down.
I've been in touch with this woman at MMA, Ellis.
Oh, Maine Municipal Association.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of her first. Laura?
Laura
Maybe Laura
Ellis.
Ellis?
Yeah, Laura.
Okay. And all I know is I get some stuff from MMA concerning this ADU regulation or regulations that were being discussed. But that was being literally revamped in the last week, 10 days in the legislature. And if they adopted anything, I don't know what the word is.
Because it was supposed to come to fruition in June,
Yeah, well,
supposedly.
the thing is, the ADU, if you want to call them options, you can have an accessory dwelling unit that's internal. In other words, it would be within the existing structure. It's just like an in-law apartment, if you will. Okay. Or it could be attached to the single-family residence that was already in place, is already in place. Or it can be detached, separated. And the problem that I saw when I read the documents some weeks ago is that there were no setback requirements. In other words, they can put it right on the property line, the way I understood it. And there wouldn't be any requirements for off-street parking. What I thought, that's gonna be interesting for the police chief
You
and
don't
the
have
public
any,
works director to
you know,
plow the streets and things like that.
resizing of septic systems if they're out there.
Yeah, so if things got passed, I don't know what got passed. So as far as going forward with this ADU stuff,
Well, I got a meeting in Caribou on the 4th and 5th. And we're supposed to have updates then.
of May.
Yeah.
But I think, folks, we've reached an end point. I think we've accomplished a fair amount. What I'll do is I'll write up what we've had. So keep all your scribbles, all your notes. I'm looking for a date for another meeting, just so that we can, talk about another meeting. Is this arrangement workable for people meeting during the workday at 3:30-ish?
Me.
I'll probably have to work around no matter what we do. So.
Well, I mean, going forward, I just want to make sure that we're, and what about, we came with Wednesday, and I don't know why we came with Wednesday this time. We've met with on Tuesdays previously.
Well, Mondays, I couldn't.
Oh, that was it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay,
No,
So
it's
let's-
3:30. I
Yeah.
can do it 6.
yeah. So,
John didn't want to do something.
let me ask you this. If we try to meet in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today would be May the 11th, it's Wednesday. Is that workable for the date? The 11th, Wednesday? And is a 3:30 meeting time still?
I'll work around it when I can, but my days are gonna start getting long.
Okay.
I'll make a suggestion, we go back to 6:30,
Mhm.
see how that applies.
People want to consider that? It doesn't bother me, it's just that,
It's better for me.
We do like 6 to 8.
If
when
we
when we
can-
met at 6:30, we went to 8.
Did to,
And we did that as a courtesy to people who had a work day, the next day that started early.
6:30.
Yeah,
And we'll continue with the Zoom.
Yeah, I say, yeah.
You okay with that, Evan?
Yeah, I have to record, so.
Is that, if we went to 6:30 at this next go around on a Wednesday, the 11th, is that something that we can work without dragging you into it? I mean, I'm giving you.
You're trying to give me an out?
Yes. I'm serious.
You're so fascinating.
I'm just along for the ride, so whatever you guys decide. Unless if something comes up, absolutely, I can't, be here, but yeah, that's, 11th to 6:30, I should be available.
you doing training sessions right now anywhere?
I am right now. It's just training. It's a hands-on
Other
training
than the
right
planning
now.
board.
I haven't got there yet. I did the legal exam yesterday. Got that out of the way.
How'd that go?
E6.
Good,
Passed.
good for you.
Gave me 3 hours, an hour and a half. They won't sit there for 3 hours. I have other things to do.
Well, if they gave you 3 hours, that's pretty good. Open book.
Yeah. I could get 100. I didn't want to hang around for an hour and a half. I had stuff to do.
Same thing with the LPI right now, they're doing the same thing. 3 hour window.
Are we on board, folks, for
Yep.
6:30 on May 11th?
Good.
Oh, okay. The next thing is gonna be this ADU stuff. And I'm imagining that we'll have something. Like that. That we can work with.
Yeah.
To realize what that is. Is there any other discussion?
No,
A motion to adjourn?
I motion it. I'll second it, whatever.
Who makes the motion?
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did? Mike did?
I second
Okay. And I've got 5:32. Is there any opposition to adjourn?
Is there ever?
I hang on.
So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.